Okay, Jelena, this is the real thing. It's not a rehearsal anymore.
Are you tired of the same old kitchen routine? Do you wish cooking could be faster, easier, and more fun? Introducing MegaChef 3000, the kitchen revolution you've been waiting for. With MegaChef 3000, cooking becomes a breeze. Say goodbye to chopping, slicing, and dicing. Our advanced laser technology does it all for you. Need to cook a gourmet meal in a minute? No problem, MegaChef 3000 can whip up restaurant quality dishes in minutes. But that's not all. Our smart appliance connects to your phone so you can control it from anywhere. Order now, and you'll also receive our exclusive cookbook packed with mouth-watering recipes and cooking tips. Upgrade your kitchen, upgrade your life with MegaChef 3000.
This episode was not sponsored by MegaChef 3000. We need to explain for the listeners what that is. Okay, first, welcome everyone to Authentic as Punk Podcast. My name is Sun. This is Jelena.
Hello.
I want to do a quick explanation of this podcast. So, by the way, we do this podcast because we want to try to figure out how we can. So, I make these carousels on Instagram that make people say, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." I'm trying to teach people how to do that. So, we're using this podcast to kind of, make carousels and figure out what's the best way to teach it, right?
Yep.
So, can you explain to everyone what that was? What is that? Why?
I was doing this for 10 times while I was cooking today, like an hour ago, because for some reason on my TikTok this popped up and I wanted to do it to try it out, and my mic didn't work, so I repeated and repeated, and it's funny to see if you can like catch the line, because the text is going up 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 and you need to like do it like faster or slower, so to adapt the pace. So I asked you if you ever done it, and you didn't understand what I was asking you, so I showed you what I was doing.
So this is like a TikTok trend or something, like where it helps you practice.
I didn't know. I literally found out for that like only today. But then I actually watched this video and this channel because so many people stitched their own videos trying to do it.
So they have the scrolling thing,
Exactly.
and then somebody will record themselves reading
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
stitch
yeah.
it. Okay,
So
got it.
this is the whole point. Yeah, yeah. So they kind of. This is how it works.
Are you tired of same old kitchen routine? Do you wish cooking could be faster, easier, and more fun? Introducing MegaChef 3000, the kitchen revolution you've been waiting for. With MegaChef 3000, cooking becomes a breeze. Say goodbye to chopping, slicing, and dicing. Our advanced laser technology does it all for you. Need to cook a gourmet meal in a hurry? No problem. MegaChef 3000 can whip up restaurant quality dishes in a minute. But that's not all. Our smart appliance connects you to your phone so you can control it from anywhere. Order now, and you'll also receive our exclusive cookbook packed with mouth-watering recipes and cooking tips. Upgrade your kitchen, upgrade your life with MegaChef 3000.
Woo! MegaChef 3000. It's funny. I mean,
yeah, it's fun. It's also fun for the person, right? Because who's like practicing.
Yeah, it's interactive. So I mean, just for the record, this is your first time, and this was very, very good for the first time. I was stumbling because it's going, so you need to catch the text. So,
Anyway,
yeah.
enough fun. So today we're gonna try to work on a carousel as always.
Yep.
And you have a couple ideas. I have a couple ideas. So let's go through the ideas first, and then we'll pick one, and then we'll make a
Okay.
carousel.
Okay. I was thinking about you know about self-care, and that online what self-care is. So it represents some kind of, I don't know, you do something for yourself. So I watched like aesthetic TikToks and reels where you have every time, like every corner is like with some candle and something, some nice setting, and this is kind of a self-care.
Hmm.
So so I wanted to say, do
Going to a
self-care.
spa.
Yeah, so do self-care like this. Have a bubble
Mhm.
bath, or make a vision board, create a skincare routine, order takeaway, creating a static desk to please your view. If this is your self-care, no wonder if this make you feel even worse. So no sexy truth here. Self-care means rest, sleep, eat well, drink, take water, your meds, exercise. Sorry to burst your Insta
So,
bubble.
so the myth is people think that self care is those things,
Yeah.
but the truth is what?
The truth is that you need to sleep, eat well,
Mhm.
rest, go to a doctor, exercise. This is like foundation of self-care.
Okay, so give me the example. Give me an example of how the myth is wrong.
You have a person that is, I don't know, taking matcha powder in the morning, and then have skincare routine, and then they're going to shop some new, I don't know, candles and something for their home, but actually they are eating fries in McDonald's. They sleep at 3 a.m. They're anxious. They're on their phone like 8 hours
Have you
a
seen
day.
people like that?
Yes.
Really? like like people who wake up early and do all of those things, but they eat McDonald's. Like,
Yeah. They order takeaway, and I mean, I'm a little bit exaggerating the scale of this,
mhm.
just to show you as an example. But yes, I do know people like that.
Okay, and do you think that's a? Do you think so? What do you think is the wrong message here? Like, what do you think people are misunderstanding?
um I think that it's not in understanding, it's more in denial. Because if you ask these people, and if they have a questionnaire to like
Mhm.
circle correct answer, they will probably know, they will definitely know what's the right answer. But it's about denial, maybe some secret hope that this will do something, or that I'll think about that tomorrow, like today. I
Really? So you think that these people think that, oh, like I can eat McDonald's and do all this unhealthy stuff and all this toxic stuff, but as long as I take a bath and I have candle things and things like that, that I'm taking care of
No,
myself. Do you
no,
really think they believe that?
not literally like that, but
Yeah.
that they don't exaggerate. They don't like the amount of importance. Like their priorities are messed up. This is so maybe they will sleep 2 out of 7 nights at right time. Maybe they will have
But they know I guarantee that those people know that that's bad.
yes,
So you can't really debunk somebody who knows that what they're doing is wrong, right?
even
In order for us to don't you think?
it is like So, you know, the example when you didn't want to check your bank account, or I didn't want
Hmm.
to scale myself to see my weight. I
Hmm.
knew that the result on my scale would not be pleasing for my eyes.
Hmm.
Uh, but I didn't do it. I didn't check that. So this is the same feeling. So, okay, so now the question is, could something help
Yeah,
me?
I know, but you know that already. So even if I said at that time, if I want to use it, like, hey, you should check your scale, you're gonna be like, yeah, I know. Do you understand what I mean?
Hmm.
So in order for us to debunk something,
Yeah, there needs to be clear myth.
they believe in something, and we need to break that belief, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, to me, like that's not self care. For example, like for me, taking a bath, doing all this, like to me, that's not really self care. That's just you. That's just spoiling yourself. It's not taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is actually doing the hard things, right? Doing the things that you don't want to do. Like that's really like if I care about if I care about my child, like would
Hmm.
I give him ice cream and give him all the things that they find pleasurable? No, right? I'm gonna have them do the things that they don't want to do because I care, right? So if I'm eating junk food and then I'm taking a bath and doing all like all these pleasurable things, I don't think that's self care. I don't think those things are good for them.
Hmm.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually think the opposite. I've actually did this myth truth before, right? Like a lot of people think that, like a lot, you know, yeah. I guess it's another one of those topic that I haven't thought deeply enough. But it's like if you love your child, are you gonna give them candy or are you gonna give them broccoli, right?
Hmm.
So I think I do it with self love. I think I say something like self love isn't spoiling yourself, right? Like if you
Okay.
love your child, would you spoil your child or would you discipline your child, right? So if you really love yourself, you should discipline yourself, not spoil yourself.
Okay.
Now, for both of the myth truth sandwich that you came up with, maybe this is what I want to do from now on. Every myth truth sandwich you come up with, I want you to give me an example from your own life.
Okay. Let me write that down.
Because I think that it's just so when you
Mm.
have experienced it in your own life, like I said, even if you can't express it with the exact right words, you know in your body that it's true. Maybe you might not be able to articulate it clearly, but you know it's true.
Hmm. Okay.
It's really hard to not talk about something that you haven't really experienced yourself because it's do you know what I mean?
Okay. It sounds like it's hard to find those lessons. I don't know.
I don't think you should be finding it. I think you should be reflecting it. Like it should be a lesson that you already learned. Now
Yeah,
I
but
want to try to figure out how to articulate it in
how
words.
to how to what questions to ask to find those places?
You shouldn't have to ask. You already like there are certain lessons in life that you've already learned that you know is for true. Like for
How to
example,
I right now my mind is like a blank canvas. So
like when you know when you have that like you have to draw boundaries sometimes, right? And maybe you had trouble drawing boundaries before, right?
yeah.
So now when we talk about drawing boundaries, that you don't have to go back and try to find that lesson. You if it's in your life, it should be so obvious that you've already learned these lessons so many times that it should be
So
very obvious.
would it be for example,
Hmm.
if so when I drive and when somebody is like right behind me, so I become nervous, like I'm too slow and that I'm I don't know, stopping someone to maybe go somewhere. So I start I feel tension.
Hmm.
So then I notice, okay, so this is for some reason it's triggering something, some criticism that I'm too slow or something.
Hmm.
So so I want, so next time if when I was in the same situation I was like, okay, so this is it, this is that situation, you, and then I would do like random things. Like the first thing that I was doing was, okay, Elena, you have the right to drive in your own pace. So I was trying to like talk to myself. Then I would take few breaths, but this didn't help. And then next time, when the same thing happened, something was on the radio, so I just turned on a little bit volume and started singing song. And this was like, oh, this is helping. So I was kind of into the song and I was back in the moment, so I wasn't nervous that much. So this became my strategy to kind of regulate myself when this is happening. So is this something that you are
Yeah.
searching for?
So, what do you think is the lesson that you learned there? First of all,
The first thing, I need to experiment to see what will work, because sometimes something will work, sometimes it would not.
hmm
The second thing is, if I distract myself a little bit, it
in
helps.
what? What's the so before we go to the solution, what is the problem first of all?
The problem is that I was anxious about
Why?
that I'm too slow and that I'm is that what you're asking
Hmm.
me? That I'm
Hmm.
too slow and that I'm stopping from a person to go somewhere because obviously they are too close to me and they kind of wanna speed up. So
So, okay, let's break that down.
okay,
Can that person just pass you
no.
instead of like, so it's
If
a one-way street, and it's so they can't pass you, and
I
you
mean,
feel like you're slowing them down. Now, let me
yeah,
ask you this: like, were you going too slow, or were you going no? Like,
it's
in your opinion, were you going too slow, or was it normal? Is that person was just overreacting?
it's normal, like in terms of
So you didn't
traffic
do anything
rules,
wrong.
in terms
Yeah,
of traffic rules, but in terms of driving in Belgrade, it's people are crazy, so they're
got it.
stressed out. So
Yeah.
if you have like a yellow light, so
Hmm.
just before green light, the first moment it shows green light, they're like "Meh, meh,
Yeah.
meh," like go go go. So you need to be like on point there.
So now sh- give me another couple of examples of situations like that where you felt that same emotion, the same pressure, the same, you know what I mean?
Mm, if I am in a store and I'm packing my things from like one cashier is like tracking them, so I need
Hmm.
to put them in my bag, and then I need to pay. So and
Hmm.
then you have a long row, so I'm like, oh, am I too slow? So I need to pack this faster. So I get nervous because I think that my normal pace is slower in this case than maybe
Hmm.
what is
Okay.
expected. So I get a
Give me
little bit
another one.
nervous. Mm, 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 mm. I don't know. You know, when you're waiting for a doctor's appointment, so you're somewhere in the hall and they open some door that is like, I don't know, 15 meters from you, and they call your name like,
Hmm.
hey, Jelena, it's you, and you need to walk there. So I'm like, and usually I have some, I don't know, book and something there, and I need to pack things with some papers, and I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my god. So I need to,
Hmm.
then they say again, Jelena, are you there? So I'm
Hmm.
here. So it's such a
So
thing.
why do you what is a common theme there? What do you think is happening?
I think that people are generally nervous, so they kind of want things to be fast. And
No, but what is happening to you?
I feel like I'm bothering someone with my pace. So like I'm a burden because I'm slow.
And is that true? Are you a burden?
For those people, I think sometimes, I mean,
What are some other times where you feel like you're a burden?
like not connected to the pace thing.
Like, do you feel the same way when I'm expecting you to give me an example, or when I'm asking you a question and I'm expecting you to give me an answer and you can't come up with an answer, right? Do you feel similar burden?
Well, sort of. I mean, if I come unprepared
Hmm.
and I'm like, and we go in so many different directions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Even though I tell you so many times not to prepare, you still spend like half an hour preparing, and I see you like, and I feel that too. Like I've had, like for example,
But remember
if
what you
if
wanted
I
to say. Remember what you wanted to say. But when I prepare, it's usually better than when I'm not prepared.
that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about why you're doing it. Okay,
Okay.
like the same thing happens for me when I'm posting something. Like for example, if I don't post for a while, and I feel like if I
Mm-hmm.
don't reply to somebody's DM for a few days, right? And I know that this person DM me and I haven't replied to them because I didn't have time, or blah, blah, all of those things gives me the same kind of anxiety of as somebody honking behind me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where do you think that comes from?
I guess that there are expectations in our head in the first place, how things should be. So we already feel guilty for not doing something. So when somebody reminds you of that, they actually just um, I don't
But
know.
why do you feel guilty in the first place? I I post content on my social media. I spend my own time to post content on my social media for free. Nobody's paying me to post content. So why do I feel guilty if I don't post?
I mean,
Why do I feel guilty when somebody's like, "Son, I haven't heard you like what happened? I haven't seen any post from you for a while. Why should I give a shit? Like you're not paying me to post content. You're not right?
yeah,
Like
there is
if
some.
somebody's like honking and you're like go faster, go. Why should you give a shit about whether that person is you know
I
You're
mean,
slowing down that
because
person or not.
you care for people that are watching
Yeah,
your content.
yeah. But I think there's a difference between caring for somebody and over caring for somebody.
Of
And
course.
I think it's I really think it comes down to people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why we feel anxious in those times because we're people pleasers, and we can't handle the fact that somebody doesn't like us, somebody is mad at us, somebody is that we didn't please that person. Like we really can't
Yeah.
handle that, and that's the real reason why we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree. I agree. I would have hard time tolerating that somebody's angry at me and because because of my pace, for example.
okay,
Or
so what's the myth? Okay, so what is the lesson there?
I mean, definitely, if nobody learned you how not to be people pleaser, you need to slowly learn yourself. I mean, this is because I mean you need to learn. Yeah, I don't know. If nobody taught you how not to care, not how not to over care, then unfortunately, but you need to do it yourself. So to separate, I mean, to I need to notice when I overcare and when I care because many times I really want to do something for someone and many times I don't want to. Like, I don't know, driving. I want to have a relaxed drive,
Hmm.
but I can't. So, so I need to learn to do it. And this is one thing. The other thing
What did you used to believe before? So like now you believe that when somebody's honking or when you're at the doctor's office, somebody calls you, you shouldn't feel nervous. You shouldn't feel anxiety. You should just relax and just do your thing. The way you should keep driving the speed that you want to drive. You should
yeah.
pack your bag the way you do. If some, I don't have to post just because I feel pressured by somebody to post.
Yeah. So
That's the
the
lesson,
thing
right? We shouldn't be
yeah.
pressured by other people to do something that we otherwise would not have done, right?
Yeah.
But what was the that's the truth. But what did you used to believe?
I used to I used to believe that I people around me need to be pleased, need to feel nice, need to probably that I can control what other people can think about me. Because you know, underneath people pleasing is controlling traits, and that I can control how other people will see me and how
But
people
why do you want other people to see you in a certain way?
I mean, not only to see me, but how they feel uh, around me. So, so this is kind of connected. If they feel nice around me, they will see me as well like that. But the whole vibe will be nice. So then I will not have unpleasant situation, or I will not have I don't know, their expectations or anger at me, pointed. So, what was the question? What's the myth?
Like what did you used to believe? That if somebody honks from you from behind that you have to speed up. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
right thing to
That
do.
that I should course correct according to other people.
The right so the right thing to do is to for you to change yourself to please other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you used to believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's work with that. What's the what's the belief there? What's the common saying, right? That people say about that? Like why do you think you believe that? Right? Like for example, like in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
in Asia, there's a saying that um like Korea is a very like America is a very individualistic country.
Mm-hmm.
Like like meaning, like I'm an individual, right? Like we're less about society and others. We're more about individualism. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like a lot of other countries, right? Like Asian countries, China, like obviously like the Russia because of like the Soviet Union, are very socialistic, meaning others before myself, right?
Yeah.
Like it's in Korea, it's more about being part of the society, caring more about others, the
Mm-hmm.
bigger group than myself, right? Whereas in America, it's like it's more individualistic. Like I gotta watch out for myself, and like it's more like that. And I think the downside of uh, that teaching of like always being selfless, always caring about putting others before you
Mm-hmm.
is what I think what makes Asian people so like. I'll just talk about Koreans because Korean is a culture that I know. That's what makes Koreans so compliant. It's so easy to tell Koreans what to do, and they'll listen to you
Mm-hmm.
because,
Mm-hmm.
like they're so that it. I think when you live in a society where it's all about like putting others before yourself, it creates a society of people pleasers.
Yeah.
And when you have a society of people pleaser, it's really easy to manipulate them. It's really easy for like narcissistic psychopath to take
Mm,
advantage of them. Do you understand what I mean?
yeah.
That's why like it should be a balance, right? We should care about ourselves first, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
then we should also care about others or something like that,
Sure.
right? So
Okay.
or some I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is like yeah, I don't know what because for me, whenever this kind of things happen, the reason why it's like so obvious to me is because I always used to I live my life based on a set of beliefs. Oh, I believe that I have to be kind. I have to care about
Mhm.
other people. I have to be a good citizen in this society. Therefore, when somebody's honking at me, I have to be respectful and I have to speed up and I should be, like I'm letting them down and that's the belief that I believe in, right? That's how for me to be a good person, a good person would speed up and wouldn't let that person,
Yeah.
whatever, something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that's it here though. I don't think you were doing that because you were trying to be a good person. I think you were doing that I think it was more out of fear
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety than trying to be a good person. Right?
I mean, it's probably blended, but
But I guess what I'm trying to
definitely,
say is, for
definitely
me,
an imposter syndrome. Like that, this is not good enough, so it needs to be,
you know,
you know,
for
faster.
me, it's like this, right? I live my life according to some set of beliefs that I believe is true, and I live like that. It's like, oh, la, 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 I'm going living my life until something happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which completely throws that off. And that's when I realized I was wrong. And then I do this, and then that's when I like, for
Yeah.
example, when 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 I was running my agency, I thought I was like, this place will fall apart without me. Like I have to, I'm the glue that's holding everything together. I literally, if I just walk away for one day, like everything was going to mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then one time I was forced to go away for a week. I had no choice, right? And then when I came back, nothing fell apart. Everything was smooth. People actually stepped up, and that was like, holy shit! Like that completely debunked what I used to my belief, my bullshit belief that somehow my body believed that, oh, I'm so nervous. What's gonna happen if I go away for 1 week? Everything's gonna fall apart. Like? And every day I was gone, I was so worried. I was like, did the office get set on fire? Is this client hate me now? Did we fuck this up? Like but then when I came back, nothing. Everything was perfect. People actually stepped up and solved all these problems, and I was like, holy shit! Like you did that? Oh my gosh, you did that! Like it surprised me. And
Mm-hmm.
from that point on, I was able to let go more and trust them more and let go of that control. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
But the reason why that was such an aha moment for me is because I used to believe something which completely turned out to be false. Do you understand what I mean? So
Okay.
have you had moments in your life like that? Where, do you understand what I mean? Like maybe, you know, you were in a relationship where it was like, oh, I need this person. I can't even imagine my life without that person. But then when you actually break up and you move on, you're like, oh, actually, I never needed that person. Like something like that. Like
I
those
mean,
are the 5 second
okay.
moments. Those are the aha moments, right? And I have so many of them in my life that I just have to start from that.
Okay.
And sometimes, actually, you know what? That's one. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere now. Sorry.
That's good.
So
Tell me, I
one
want to know.
is the aha moments, right? So that's one way to find this myth truth. What are
Mm-hmm.
some of these aha moments, right? Like, and I say it all the time, right? Like, oh my gosh, like, I used to be so afraid to like go talk to a girl. Oh my god, what am I? Okay, I'm gonna say. I'm gonna go say this joke.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try this line. And no, that's stupid. Oh, let me say this. While I'm just sitting there thinking about it, like 10 minutes passed by, 20 minutes passed by, and then now she left. Now I can't even like right, like things like that happen, or like maybe I have to um maybe I have a question to ask in the meeting, and I was like, oh, should I raise my hand? Should I raise my hand? I'm waiting for the right time. Okay, I'm gonna raise my hand once this guy stops talking. But then as soon as he stops talking, somebody else starts talking. I'm like, okay, should I? And then finally, like the meeting's over, and I never like. There's so many times where I was afraid to take that action, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then one time when I actually did it, it was I didn't even think about it, right? And then I was able to do it. Like what happened was I found in that moment what I realized is that the more you think about it, the harder it becomes to do it.
Okay. When you said about the aha moment, maybe talk calm
Well, that's
down.
only one way. That's just the
Okay.
first way. There are other ways.
Okay. Do you wanna continue with
The
what you
second
wrote
way,
down? Okay.
the second way is this. What I realized, this is something I realized recently. When I watch a movie or YouTube video or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a conversation or something like that,
Okay.
there are certain things that catches my attention more. For example, um, I was watching this YouTube video documentary about how Nike started, right? Like the whole
Okay.
history of Nike, yeah, and how Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, how he used to be. he when he was like young, he used to sell encyclopedia door to door, but he had to leave, and he had to come back home because he was just terrible in sales. But then later on, when he was selling his shoes out of his trunk, it was really easy for him to sell it because he was convicted on he believed in the product. He was so passionate about the product that, you know what I mean? And that story resonated with me so much. That, I mean, the whole story goes into so many different. Like, there's that lesson. There's a lesson of how they got sued, and he was resilient, and blah blah blah. Oh, like there were probably dozens of business lessons in that video.
Okay.
But the one thing that stood out for me was that when he said how he couldn't sell encyclopedia, but right, well, because I've also experienced it in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I mean?
Okay.
So the lesson is, like, we think that we're not good in sales, but it's not that you're not good in sales. It's that you don't believe in the product, right? And I've learned lesson about that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, and sometimes remember I told you about the Simon Sinek thing, right?
So
When he said, "Hey,
was it something that you've already thought about, and actually this is a lesson you learned, so you were reminded by that of your own lesson that you learned, or you learned a lesson by watching
both,
them?"
both." Sometimes I've already learned the lesson. Like in this case, I already learned the lesson, right? Sometimes I already learned the lesson. Now I just got a new example of it.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, this was like a really, really simple one, but a little bit more complex one would be like a little bit more complex one would be like the Simon Sinek one, right? Oh, do you love your wife? When was the exact moment when you when you loved your wife, right? And then that, with how, for me, that hit me because I'm like, oh shit, that's true. Like, a lot of the times when I build relationship with people, it was because of all these small talks and these little situations that happen over the years is what made me build relationships with them. I can't. Whenever I try to force a build, if I try to get really close with somebody like in a short period of time and I try to force it, it never happens, right? The real relationships are built over long, like something like that, right? So sometimes I'll hear something from from someone or from a movie or whatever it is, and it hits me because they were able to articulate in words what I was feeling. Like, I didn't know that was happening, but once you say it, it's kind of like when I said, like, do you think that has something to do with people pleasing? Like when somebody honks and what, you're probably going like, oh yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. What I think,
So,
I mean, your lessons sound fancy. My lessons sound boring. Uh, for example, uh, like recently, you know how when in movies, some like I don't know, romantic movie where a lady is single and she's now in her new apartment, so she's like, painting with music, so she's like there with maybe some
like those
wine.
YouTubers.
So yeah, so she's in her like move, and you see them, you see how she is enjoying, there's some music there.
Hmm.
And when I watch that, I I think about myself. I'll be probably like, oh my god, I need to do this. I hate my life. I need to paint this wall or something. So the thing is, everyday life, in many parts of that day, when you need to do something that you don't like, it's boring. So for me, it's boring. It's painful to, I don't know,
Hmm.
vacuum, clean your
Hmm.
home or something. So I was thinking about that, and like how to, why is this so boring? So, and why, and I also thought, like, why is so quiet? Because I don't think about, I like music, but I don't it doesn't click for me to just turn it on. So I was like, okay. And what I did, like, okay, let's try to force this a little bit. Let's do this on purpose. Like every
The
day
same thing
to
with
do it.
vacuuming, like cleaning. Like you don't
Yeah,
do it because
if I don't like to do it, but to kind of put here and there one or two things that I can, that maybe is going to do some pleasure for me.
yeah, do a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but I needed to kind of force it. It wasn't like, I woke up and I turned on music
Hmm.
and everything is nice. And after that, so I kind of now have much easier that impulse, like, maybe some music here, okay, maybe
Hmm.
something, but it was forced at the beginning, and probably it is now as well, but not that much. But I needed that push, you know, for to maybe have a little bit more pleasure in unpleasant things. So my lesson for me is that, I need some push, because these things are not going to just happen. You need to make them happen. So
And when was the moment you realized that?
what I found, I think I had this feeling like it's kind of a boring and sad. Like, if I do things like this, it's
Hmm.
boring and it's sad. It's kind of a,
What's boring and sad?
to be in your home because I'm writing something, or I'm doing something around home. So if this is the day when I'm longer hours alone and it's quiet, so that kind of, you have some chores, it's quiet, you know, I don't know, some kind of sad feeling there, in that, because then you don't talk, you don't have anyone to talk to. So that kind of, I don't know,
Okay.
sad feeling out of that. It's not only boredom, it's more that you are alone in that,
So what's
around
the
the time,
realization you had?
that nothing better will happen unless I make it. So I can be miserable in this.
Okay. So when did you realize that?
I don't remember the exact moment, but that thing about music. So this about music happened
Hmm.
recently. I don't know, maybe a few months ago.
I try not to make carousels on things that lessons that I've learned recently because it's not.
The thing is, yeah, this is another issue, because I'm more aware of things that are happening right now. I don't remember what I learned. Probably I had some lessons on the way years ago or something, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's vanished or something.
No,
Because
yeah, yeah, yes, you did. You did. You have huge life lessons you learned that shaped the person that you are today. And there are things that you've been doing wrong until some sort of a change happened, and then you changed yourself,
mm,
right? So there are lessons like that. Everyone does.
so how,
But then the thing is, that thing seems so obvious to you right now,
yeah,
and that's why it's
I'm sorry.
okay. So the so number two. is when somebody verbalizes a lesson that I've learned in my life, that I can feel it, but I just haven't been able to verbalize it. I couldn't put it into words. And then somebody just put it into words for me, right? Like when Simon Sinek goes, "Do you love your wife?" When's the exact moment when like somebody's exactly verbalized, put it into words exactly how I was feeling. That's it. I just, you know what I mean? And when a comedian says something, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so true," right? It's because we know we felt it, but we just didn't have the right words for it, right? So that's another thing, right? Like for example, when I first heard like Cal Newport say, you know, what you do is not as important as how you do it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Like that's exactly how I've been feeling. I just didn't know how to express it. But once he said that, I was able to break down what that means and like really go deeper and see like, okay,
Mm.
like it wasn't like what got me here is not because ooh, web design was my purpose. That's my why. I was born with that, and that's not how I got here, right? The reason why I got here is because of how I do it. I just give it all, no matter what's in front of me. I just put it all, and that's how I got here, right? So
Yeah.
so sometimes like it's something that I have experienced in my life, but somebody said it and this is why I consume so much content. I'm always listening to podcasts or watching this documentary, blah blah blah. And Gigi's always looking at me like Gigi has zero interest in any of those things, right? Like it's the exact opposite of me. Like,
Mm.
and I don't know a lot of people like that, but I think that's why this is so like for me consuming those content. Yeah, sometimes it feels like a waste of time, but I know it's not because a lot of times consuming those content, even if I knew something, like I'm able to connect the dot between what they're saying and what I've experienced in my life. And that connecting the dot, that recognizing that and connecting the dot is actually huge help to making content. Huge help for me to clarify my own ideas or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So,
So, okay, first of all,
mhm.
one aha moment,
Okay.
right? When did I have that realization? So sometimes I find it like that. Number two is watching other people's content, watching other consuming other stuff. I'm able to connect the dot between that and what I've experienced in my own life, and I get lessons like that. Number three, I forgot. I forgot what I was going to say.
Mm, I don't know. You had three?
Yeah, there was something else, but I forgot. Watching content and then connecting the dots. Yeah, I can't think of it now. You know, well, let me give you two myth truth sandwich that I've been thinking about,
Okay.
and then you let me know if it's relatable, if you resonate with it, and then if you do, tell me why. Like, where in your life have you experienced it? Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
So this is
Oh,
not
okay. I found the third one, by the way.
okay. You want to say
The
it?
third one is when somebody says something, when somebody gives an advice or they make a statement, and I disagree with it
Okay.
because I know I've tried that and it didn't work for me. That's another point. That's another trigger that
Oh,
gets me to remember the lesson, which is kind of like I think what you've been focusing on, right? Like I hate it when people are like, just do what you love, or like they're like that. Almost everything that I hear on social media, I'm actually like, I feel that way. I feel like, oh, this person doesn't understand.
okay. So what that remind you of? That remind you of your lesson, isn't it?
Yeah, how it wasn't true for me. Like the other day I saw a YouTuber say I heard a YouTuber say experience is best teacher, right? And yes, I did say that. So, and I think maybe because you know for me, you know what I'm starting to realize is that my personality has a lot to do with it. I'm such a black and white person. I'm very all or nothing. Do you understand what I mean? So if somebody says like experience is the best teacher, right? Like if that's the lesson that I learned, I believe that experience is the best teacher. Then I just want to go and experience everything and learn all the blah, 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 right? That I forget, you know, that I go too far that way, and then I get burned, and then now I go too far this way, and then I get burned, and then I find the balance somewhere in between. I find the nuance, right? So I know the dangers of this, and I know the dangers of that. So that I know when to go more this way and when to go more this way, right? Something like that. And that's why I can debunk this, and I can also debunk this. So if somebody says experience is the best teacher, yeah, I agree, right? For example, what like the example that she gave, she's a outdoor. She lives in her truck traveling, and she's a YouTuber, right? And she says that a lot of times, people build their truck, with the storage, little container for the refrigerator, all of that stuff. How they think they're gonna do it, but then once they go for a year and go traveling for a year, they change everything. Because once you actually live in a truck for a year, you realize, oh, I didn't need that, but I do need this. Oh, I didn't need this. My fridge doesn't have to be that big; it could be actually smaller, but I need more storage here. Like you don't know that until you actually go out there and experience it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what she was referring to, like experience is the best teacher. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so fucking true. Like when I first started Night Owl Nation, I thought this is what I imagined. Completely turned out, and in every business, everything that I've ever done in my life, that turned out to be true. I went in with one expectation, and it turned out to be completely different than what I expected. That's why experience is the best teacher. I agree.
Okay.
But so there was a point in my life when I truly, truly, truly believed that experience is the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher. No, no, no. Actually, um, I didn't believe that because there were so many times things that I've experienced and I didn't learn. But the reason why I didn't learn is because I was so stubborn. And it goes back to most people actually experience is not the best teacher, because even though they experience something, they repeat the same mistake over and over and over again. It's kind of like what I say about doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome is the definition of insanity. But that's what people tend to do. right?
Okay.
So experience alone is not the best teacher. Reflecting on your experience and realizing what you did wrong and stop being stubborn and be willing to change. That's the real best teacher, right? So it's not just experience. Because so many
Mm-hmm.
people experience the same shit over and over and over and they don't learn from it, right? So the best teacher is actually experience plus reflecting on that experience and being willing to make a change. That's the real best teacher.
Okay.
Something like that, right? So
Okay.
that was an example of when she said, "Oh, experience is the best teacher." I'm like, "No, it's not." Most people like immediately my head went to you. Most people experience toxic relationships over and over and over and over, and they still don't run. They still don't learn. Most people experience, you know, not being able to get healthy or fit over and over and over, and they still never learn. For most people, experience alone is not the best teacher, right? So that's it's I like even though I know what she means,
Mm-hmm.
when somebody says something like that, I try to find the contradicting. From my own experience, I know that there's the other side of it too, right? Something like that, and it's probably also because of it comes from experience because I myself have experienced it.
So, is this your carousel you are working on?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no, it's not.
okay.
I just wanted to give you the third method. So first, aha moments. Two, watching somebody or hearing somebody, and then that reminds me of, oh yeah, like they put it into words. And then number three, when somebody says something
Mm-hmm.
and I disagree with it because I
Okay.
know the other side of it because from my own experience, right? But you see how all three of them are related to experience. Like I have to be able to connect the dot back to my life. Otherwise, it's bullshit. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't connect the dot back to your own experience, it's just never going to be as good.
Okay. So, so if we imagine that someone is like lazy in thinking, so this is not
Mhm.
possible for them to lazy in reflecting, or maybe they don't. I mean,
Yeah, I think two traits that I have that most people don't have is I'm probably more curious than most people. Like I'm probably more curious than almost everyone I know.
mm-hmm.
And number two, that curiosity makes me like like if you give me a riddle, I will like I don't want the answer. What everybody just moves on. It's like okay, well, what's the answer? Well, I have to sit there for hours and try to figure it out. Like it's my curiosity that's doing that. So most people don't have the uh, like most people. What I say is they're intellectually lazy. So for example, if I came to you and I said, let me ask you this: where do you think the word orange came from? Do you think it started with the fruit, or do you think it started with the color? Like, is the fruit named after the color, or is the color named after the fruit?
To answer like right now,
Yeah, think about it.
um, so I'm thinking about what else is orange color. It's mandarin, but it's not orange. So probably I would say if it's first the fruit and then the color. I don't know.
Yeah, why?
Because because if there's multiple fruits that are orange and only one is named orange, it
Hmm.
means that the fruit existed and then they decided to name the color. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either, right? Where I didn't know either, but now I know. But yeah, you're right. The color came from the fruit. It's the reason why we don't call banana yellow. It's the reason why we don't call apple red. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
because it makes more sense that the color derived from the fruit than we name the fruit after the color, right? What
Yeah.
other fruit is named after the color, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, but if you just think about it for a little bit, logically, it makes more sense that the color came from the fruit than the fruit came from the color, right? It just makes more sense. But most people that I asked this question to, they're like, they just randomly guess the color, the orange. They don't even think about it. Like literally, they give me an answer within a second. It's like I don't know, or they'll just say I don't know, and they don't even try to spend the extra 30 seconds to try to even think about it. Where they was like,
Yeah.
huh, that's a good question. Oh, let me think about it. Right? Actually, like, in Goldman Sachs. Go ahead.
Um, when you were trying to solve this, did you instantly think about other fruits as well, or this came after you
No,
find
no,
out?
no. I try to think about where it came from first, and then
I mean, did you think about other fruits like apple, banana while you were trying to solve it?
yeah, like a little bit later, I'm like, imagine like that, when they discovered, um, like when they discovered Apple for the first time, or
Mm-hmm.
like maybe that's not a good example, but let's say they discovered banana for the first time, like they didn't, they could have named it yellow. Like I thought about like how stupid would it be if they named that fruit yellow because the color
Mm-hmm.
was yellow. Like that's like the dumbest thing ever, right? It makes more sense that if the color, it makes more sense that somebody calls the yellow color banana. Oh, that's banana color. That makes
Mm-hmm.
much more
Mm-hmm.
sense than somebody that says, "Oh, that fruit is called yellow." That makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious, right? When you think about it for a little bit.
Okay, I ask this because you have this muscle for thinking
But it's
in.
because of it's not muscle, it's curiosity. Because when you have the curiosity, the muscle gets developed automatically because you're constantly doing it. You're constantly
Yeah.
thinking about it. You're constantly trying to figure out, solve problems.
Um.
Let me give you another example.
Okay.
In Goldman Sachs, uh, when they say when in job interview, they ask everybody this question: how many gas stations are there in the United States? And there are two types of candidates. One first candidate says, I don't know. I have no idea. That's their answer. The second candidate goes like, okay, let's see. There's 50 states. There's on average this many people live in states. So there's probably this many cars. And on average, there's probably this, on average, a person probably drives this many miles per hour, this many miles per day, blah, blah, blah.
Mm,
And probably, and then they'll at least try to guesstimate it, right?
yeah.
Versus the first kind of person, which is actually majority of the people, are like, I have no idea. That's their answer. They don't even stop to even try to guess it. They just go
Hmm.
immediately to I have no idea. Right? That's what I mean by intellectually lazy. Most people are intellectually lazy because they don't even want to give it the little.
So
It's kind
is
of like
there
this, right?
is there
Mhm.
hope for intellectually lazy people to make capital?
That's actually my question.
Because it would be
That's
nice.
actually a good question because I actually think that's, you know what,
Mm.
that is actually a big part of our job. It's actually a big part of our what we have to try to do in Night Owl Nation. How can we get people to be more intellectually curious rather than intellectually lazy?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it happens all the time. Like when I'm doing something, like you know how many people fucking DM me and ask me, "Oh, son, um, they'll ask me like, "Oh, how did you put that subtitle on the Instagram like that?" Like this was like a couple years. Like now, I think everyone knows. But a couple years ago, like how Instagram has caption. Oh, how did you do that? Right? Oh, wow. How did you put caption in your? I'm like, there's a sticker on Instagram called captions, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like literally like you know that website, like there's a website called, let me Google that for you. Like
Okay.
let me show let me this is like literally um this is like the best okay, I'm gonna share my screen so you can see. Okay, do you see?
Yes.
So if oh shit. So when somebody asks me, do you see my screen? Google.
Yes. Yes.
So when somebody asks me, son, how do I add caption on how did you add caption on Instagram like that? I'll literally send them this link. And then it's like, come on, was that really so hard? Right? And then you see the answer now. Like that's what I used to send them. But it's the the level of intellectual laziness in the world is fucking mind-boggling to me. How people don't even want to spend the fucking 5 minutes to find the answer they can easily find if they really wanted to. That they just like, oh, how do you do that? How do you immediately their answer? You know what? Actually, I
Let me
think
tell
it
you.
can be learned.
Let me.
I actually think it can be learned.
Cannot.
It can,
It
because I
can.
used to be like that too. I
You
used to go
you
to
used to not think that much and not be curious.
no,
No.
not as, but I've gotten even more.
Well,
Like
that's
I
totally
used to
different
be
thing. It's so different from somebody that already goes to gym to kind of shrink it to look even better. But for somebody that is like Coach Potato to move and to regularly go
well.
exercise, it's different.
Here's what happened, because I used to do that all the time. Like with in my first, in one of my like older job, I used to work in IT, and I will always go to this guy and ask him like, hey, I got this error. What should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And then he would literally, you know what he did? Like he would search for that in Google, and then Google, and then he'll click on it, and he'll literally read it in front of me. And when you read it in front of me, there says like, oh, here's one you get, and then he'll click on that link and he'll read that in front of me, and then like it'll literally take 45 minutes to read through the document, right? And then he's like, oh yeah, this is what you do. And then you know what how I would feel afterwards? I would feel like a complete loser,
Mm.
because he just proved to me that, son, you're too lazy to read, so you just come and ask me. So I just pretty much just read this for you. It's not that I knew the answer that you didn't know. I just read and you don't. That's what he basically proved to me, right? Through that action. And that happened again. That wasn't the first time. It happened again and again and again. And at a certain time, I just felt like a complete moron because he kept proving to me that this is how easy it is to find the answer. You just don't want to spend the 45 minutes reading. And that started. So I got in the practice of like, um, And that's the thing. I think people automatically assume that, oh no, I'm not technical. Oh, I don't know anything about video editing, so I could never do that. Oh, I don't know anything about design, so I could never do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I wasn't born with fucking Photoshop skills implanted in my head. So if any human being, like I was a crying baby who was shitting and pissing on my diaper just like you at some point in my life. So if I can do that, then you can definitely do it.
Okay. Um. Yeah. Um.
So,
I'm.
but okay,
Mhm.
the intellectually lazy thing. I think that's a key.
Um. I mean, definitely people that don't think need to want to think more. So if they don't want to
Yeah,
think more, but if then they don't see that as a problem, how?
they're they're okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
Like not knowing meaning, I'm not saying not know. Of course, I don't know either, right? I'm okay with not knowing my future, but I'm not okay with not knowing when something has been presented to me. For example, when I watch a movie, I don't know if you do this, but when I watch a movie and I miss like this dialogue where he says something, I'll stop and I'll rewind and I'll rewatch it to catch. Okay, wait, what happened just there? If I
Hmm.
missed that, or if I didn't understand,
Do
I'll go
you,
back and rewatch it.
do you like watch that for every movie? Do you do that for every movie, or it depends?
Obviously I can't do it in a theater, but
Yeah,
no,
but
I do that for the movie that I am interested in, like that I want to watch,
mhm.
but not every movie. Because some movies is just on the background and you're not really watching it, right? You're
Yeah.
just you're just like cooking and it's movies playing in the background or something like that, right? But if I'm sitting and we're watching a movie, and sometimes like if I go to the bathroom and I'll ask Gigi what happened, and she's like, I don't know. Like this is what I realized when I went to film school. Um, that when most people watch movie, I realized that they actually miss like 50% of it,
Really? Like
but they're
50%.
okay with it. Yeah, they actually missed 50% of, meaning they didn't really fully 100% get the movie. There are
Okay.
certain things that, but then because you know even if you miss 50% of it, you can still understand the movie. You can still see what happened just from the actions and things like that, right? But then when I dive deeper, I'm like yeah, I remember in that, like there are certain scenes that I'm like, for example, I'll go to my my like Gigi and be like, hey, remember the scene in Knocked Up when they were talking about Marty McFly and the Back to the Future reference? She's like, what are you talking about, right? It's like I missed that whole thing.
Mm.
So I remember every little detail and I know what they were referring to. If they reference a joke, I know what that joke is about. Like if they reference like a different thing
Mm.
in the movie as a joke, I understand. I got the joke. And if I don't get the joke, I'll look it up and I'll be like, why is that funny? And I'll look, like I actually need to understand the whole thing, right? But most people don't feel the need to do that. Right? So, and that's the reason why I think that for me, when I watch these podcasts, these movies, blah blah blah, I'm able to connect the dot between those things so easily and so many times when most people can't because they're just passively listening to it or they're just passively watching it
Hmm.
or something like that.
I see. So curious, and the other trait is neurotic, I guess.
Maybe, yeah,
Or you meant something different?
yeah. I think it is neurotic. Um. Okay, so here's the two carousel ideas I have. See if you can in your own life. If this resonates, and see if you can find an example from your own life. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. This is the one I've been working on. So. Okay, so you know how people say, have you heard people say this, like the power of saying no?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I mean?
I mean,
Like, let me just Google it real quick.
you know, when they say you need to start saying no for something so that you can say yes for some other things. So
Yeah. So learn to say no, right? Or like, so people say that, right? Like you have to, you. And I think some people even say, like, if you listen to Tim Ferris and some of the really really successful people, they actually say, I say no to almost everything so that I can say yes to the ones I really want, right? Or something like that, right? Now, that is a myth. Well, here's the problem with that. So now I talk to 22-year-old freelance designers who read all those books from Tim Ferris. Now they think they're Christo and they think they're fucking Tim Ferris. They're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like, they're saying no, but then they're also asking me if I can give them some opportunities for freelance projects. And I'm like, if you don't fucking have projects right now and you're looking for projects, you should be saying yes to everything. The saying no is for people who have unlimited opportunities. You have too many opportunities. That's who that is for. If you have no opportunities right now, you should be saying yes to everything. Do you understand what I mean?
okay.
Okay, so that's one, but this is related to still related.
Okay.
I actually think the answer is not to say no. Okay, so that's one, but related to that is, that's what I would, if I'm making a piece of content for that 21-year-old freelancer, that 21-year-old entrepreneur who's getting started. What I would say is, people say say no so that you can say yes to the things that are meaningful. So say no to almost everything so you can say yes to the thing that's meaningful, right?
Yeah.
I would say that's only when you have that many opportunities to say no, right?
Yeah.
If you're just starting out and you're looking for opportunities and you're looking for clients and you're looking for customers, right? Then you should be saying yes to everyone. Just like that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey. That's how you get the opportunities. And once you have all unlimited opportunities, then you can start saying no, right?
Okay.
Okay. Now for the little bit more experienced, older people, the carousel I would make is, you know how people say no? Like, they say no to everything and only yes to the things that you care about. Like, that's what Tim Ferris says, and that's what all these fucking business gurus that say. Well, that's bullshit too. You know why? Because if Steve Jobs said no to everything except for the thing that he cared about, he would have just only focused on next computer, and he would have never bought Pixar. Which is where he ended up actually, most of his net worth came from Pixar. Do you know what I mean? If Elon Musk said no to everything else and he just only focused on Tesla, there would be no SpaceX, there would be no Boring Company. Like, he wouldn't have bought Twitter. Like, do you understand what I mean? from my experience, almost every successful um, ventures that came out happened almost by accident. Not because somebody said no to everything and just said yes to that. That's not how most
Mm.
companies started. Do you know what I mean? Most companies became successful because they tried all these things out. And some of them worked and some of them didn't. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So the answer is don't say no to everything. Don't say yes to everything. Always say maybe. And then see where it goes. And then decide whether it's going to be a yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't automatically just upfront say no or yes.
Okay.
Start with the maybe. That's what, because I think I see so many people making that mistake right now. Like I see, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, let me think of another example. Like mm,
So when they say the power of no, you mean like declining opportunities because you need to focus on one
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Okay. Um,
But imagine Joe Rogan was like, no, I gotta focus on my stand-up comedy, so
mhm.
I'm not gonna do podcast. Where
Yeah.
would Joe Rogan be right now compared to? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of times the answer is like, yeah, try it out, see what happens,
Mm-hmm.
and then, but don't put all your eggs in it, and then make a decision whether it's gonna be a yes or no. You know, don't say, oh, I want to start a t-shirt company. Okay, order 100,000 t-shirts. Or, nah, t-shirt company doesn't work. Let's not do it. No. Why don't you order 500 t-shirts to see if anybody buys it or not? And if it sells out, now buy 5,000. And then if that sells out, then buy 50,000. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like yes or no upfront.
Okay.
The true answer is it shouldn't be a yes or no. Everything
Mm-hmm.
should be a maybe, because and that's how you diversify your investments. You know what I mean?
I see.
So does that resonate with you? Like everyone says either some people say be a yes man, just say yes to everything. Some people say no to everything except the one only the things that you care about, and you have to be strict about saying no,
Mm,
right? Well, I would say the answer is it's neither yes or no. It's maybe. Say maybe to everything.
yeah. I have stories that are where actually I was doing this maybe thing. So
Hmm.
I have one. I mean, I had one instantly that happened recently that associated me when I heard this. So do you want to hear it?
Sure.
Okay. Um, so I'm doing psychotherapy. Uh, and I'm open to see what else is going to come out of I don't know, maybe some other opportunities. So one colleague asked me to work with her on some project that is financed by UNICEF, and I was like, okay, so I didn't expect that. I wasn't planning it, but I mean, it's cool to have that experience, and the topic is totally different from anything that I did before. So I was like, okay, this is not according to my plans, but let's say maybe. So I didn't want to say yes or no because it's time consuming, and I could not like do psychotherapy a lot. But I wanted to do that because it's good experience, and in your resume
it's nice to have that for maybe some another opportunities. So I was saying, like, show me, send me the project, and I'll think about it, and I'll answer to you. And then I read it, and I see actually that it's cool, but it's like only like 10% is what I like, and 90% is like boring things that you need to do administration for those questionnaires and those conversations to work out, and transcripts and everything. And I was like, no, no, this is like I cannot do
But was that a time when you were saying yes to everything before that?
maybe one short period of time when I started. When I started psychotherapy practice, and when I was a lot in this community of students, so I was working with students. And then when you are doing public, these kind of workshops, people call you to go to TV and to say something about some topics. So I didn't like that, but I was like, I need to say yes because, it will open something and something will happen. So I
Hmm.
was forcing myself to do it. And some of those were totally, like what I was speaking about. One topic was to say something about, I don't know how you call when you know, it's not gambling, but it's, when everybody buy tickets and you have like one lucky star that is,
Like
how do you call
like a
it in English?
raffle, like is it like a game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was almost like a new year, and I needed to say a word about these games, and people are
Hmm.
in like welcoming New Year. So just I don't know
Hmm.
what was that about. So I was saying something. So nothing for me, nothing for people that listened, but I was speaking because this is thing that I need to say yes to because somebody called me. I need to make good relationships. They will
Hmm.
call me again and blah blah. Blah. Yeah. So
So what
this is
happened?
the time.
So
I
what did you
mean,
learn?
that
Was there a point in your life where you said you just say yes to everything, no matter what? Where you just you said yes to too many things to a point where it became overwhelming.
definitely. This is definitely
Okay. So the reason why I bring this up
okay.
is exactly like that. It's because that's what I experienced. I said yes to everything and I became overwhelmed. And then I heard Tim Ferris say, you got to say no to almost everything. I was like, oh my gosh, whoa, so true. So I started saying no to everything. But then when I say no to everything, what happened was every opportunity went away. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of what I see with a lot of people right now. Like what I see with a lot of people is like they said yes to everything, they became overwhelmed, and that they went completely the opposite way, where they're now like kind of they're playing small,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like no, like no, 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 like now they're saying no to everything, right? And they almost went too far the other way, right? When the answer is somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what happened to me. I was too overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went the opposite the other way, where I'm like, oh, I wish I had some more opportunities now, because once you start saying no to everything, people stop asking you
Mm-hmm.
because they're gonna be
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, he's just gonna say
yeah.
no. So let's not even bother. Like in the beginning, I say yes to everything. So every weekend I was busy. Like I had to go to fucking 5 birthday parties and go to this weekend. Like I had so many things to do. And then when I started saying no to everything, now nobody even calls me. Like when something's going on,
Mm,
right? So the answer is somewhere in between. It's a maybe. Do you understand what I mean?
yeah.
So that's why that And I've experienced that whole spectrum myself. Therefore, I can recognize when other people are struggling with that. It's hard for you to recognize when somebody's struggling with something unless you've struggled with the same thing yourself. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So now I recognize this is what happening. Like what I recognize is that I feel like the pendulum has swung too far the other way, where now I see everybody just saying no to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean?
So when you imagine, so just to understand, like to do the reverse engineer, to how do you say it? Reverse and
To reverse engineer it.
to reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
So you're talking. So did you have a specific person you were talking to when you wrote this?
When did I remember this? Yeah, I think actually this one, when I got the idea for it, yeah. When did I first get this idea? I think it was when I was in New York a couple weeks ago, and I saw that. Like I met with this guy. His name is Craig, and he's had all these people on his podcast, all these like huge influencers on his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him like, how did he get that? He's like, oh, I just reached out to them on Instagram and all through social. I met them through social media, and that's I kept networking with them and blah blah blah. And he's really good at keeping touch with them and asking for stuff and blah, 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 like things like that, right? And then I realized like, oh, I can probably do the same thing. I can spend my time on doing that and probably get those people just through just networking, maintaining relationship, and like things like that. But what I realized is that at that time, what I realized is that I don't get as much opportunities anymore now because I've said no to so many opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, kind of like, oh, maybe I should say yes to some of those opportunities, right? So now I'm going to probably, at least like if somebody reached out to me, like this is me, when somebody reaches out to me and say, hey, should we do a collaboration, blah, 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 I don't even reply to them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I'm like, no, I don't have time for that shit, right? Or something like that. But now I'm gonna at least reply to them and see what it's about, right? I'm gonna say maybe. So it's more for myself, right? This tip.
By the way, how many messages you get on like daily basis?
I don't know. A lot.
More than
maybe like 100. Yeah.
Daily.
Yeah, because but I don't reply to all of them. I don't check them all.
How do you know?
I probably get 100. Well, I'll reply to the ones that are in my primary, like the people that I know.
Okay.
But like 90% of the messages are from people I don't know.
And how many messages you get from primary inbox?
Maybe like 20.
Okay. Well, that's not a lot. I thought it's more.
Yeah.
I mean, from the primary inbox, but
Yeah.
from
Like on Instagram.
No. Yeah. Okay.
But that's also another thing. Like the more you say yes, the more messages you get. But because I say no a lot, or because I ignore them a lot, they stop messaging me at some point.
I mean, how could you answer on 100 messages on daily basis? So if you don't answer, like if you the 10 days don't.
I used to. Yeah.
on every message.
I mean, like last year I did. Yeah.
Okay, good luck with that. Okay.
The
So
problem with messages is this. You ever have this feeling like you're you're like, it's like imagine it's like a beehive, right? Or like a hornet's nest, and
mhm,
you don't want to poke it, you don't want to stir it, right? So there are some people I almost don't want to reply to, because I know that once I reply, that they're gonna keep messaging me, and I'm gonna have to keep this conversation. Like, those the people, the talkers that just keeps talking
mhm,
forever.
mhm.
Like, so sometimes, like, I'm afraid to reply to somebody like that because I don't want to open up this, like, I don't want to open up this thing where, like, now I'm gonna spend the next hour just talking to this person, because I don't have time for that, right?
Okay,
So
so
I'll purposely not reply, even though it can be a quick little answer or something like that.
that's
You know what I
the
mean?
person you already know, you're familiar
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Okay, so it's from your primary inbox.
No, not always, because, like, I made the mistake of replying. Like, somebody will, like, hey, son, I just wanted to tell you that I really love this post, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, oh, thank you. And then and then they'll reply right away and be like, oh, by the way, like, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll, like, force the conversation to keep going.
Okay, okay,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And there's people like that even when I go out to dinner. It's like, sometimes, like, there's people where we're having a conversation, and all of a sudden this person asks me a question, and I'll reply, and they'll, like, keep talking to me, like, for the whole night, right? When I also want to talk to other people too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have to,
So
like, find a way to cut it off, right? So sometimes with those people, I'll avoid them, just so that I don't even get into it. Because once I know I get into it, like, it's so hard for me to cut it off.
so you cannot just disappear. You know, if you open a message and if you start conversation, you need to continue it.
Yeah, I mean, there is not everybody, but there are people like that, where they, they just don't get the hint. Like, I'm busy, like, I don't have time to sit here and talk to you for an hour on DM. Like, do you know what I mean? Or,
Yeah.
like,
Okay. Um. Okay. So
okay, so that's the first carousel.
so
You want to hear the second one?
what would you use for the example? You mentioned a few of them. What would you use? So
So one of the things that I would use is, imagine Steve Jobs focused on the Apple II computer. And when he went to Xerox PARC for the first time and saw the GUI interface, he said, no, we got to focus on the Apple II, right? Then, so imagine he said no to, like, so here are all the other things that was going on. So there was the Lisa computer, which was, like, the first GUI, first computer with a mouse and a screen, like, screen with, graphics, right? They were also working on a printer, a laser printer. They were also working on, like, the Palm Pilot. They were also trying to work on a tablet computer. They had a lot of different projects going on. Like, there was all maybes. Okay, almost every single one of them failed. But then one of them, the Lisa, ended up becoming the Macintosh. The tablet that failed 15 years later ended up becoming the iPhone. Okay?
yeah.
And so, and the printer, when he was working with Canon to make the first personal laser printer, it became the first personal laser printer ever in the market, right? So all of those things happened because there was a lot of maybes, right? Like if
Okay.
Steve Jobs just said, so that's one example, right? That I would say.
So,
Another example I can give.
so if you
Yeah.
use that one in the carousel, then you need to explain it that, I mean, in like
Well, I mean, now
5
we need to
slides.
actually, I need to actually figure out a different example or something like that. Like that one, maybe I will do this to make it really, really simple.
Mm-hmm.
I would say something like, if Steve Jobs just focused on computers, there will be no Pixar. If Elon Musk just focused on PayPal, there will be no Tesla and SpaceX. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would give a few examples like that of if these people, like I would give examples of how a maybe turned into a huge successful product,
Mm-hmm.
which if they said no to, it wouldn't have, right? Either that or maybe another example I'll give it is like the one I told you, right? Like imagine if your friend asks you, hey, do you want to come out with us tonight? And you say no. And imagine you did that 100 every day to everyone. Do you think anybody will ever ask you to? Do you think anyone will ever call you again to ask? At some point, they're going to stop asking. And that's how most people lose opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I think, I mean, personally, I like the previous one more because it's more, I don't know, obvious. Not obvious, but it's more effective, I think. It's connected to business. In relationships, it's similar, but maybe. What means maybe in a relationship?
Mhm. Imagine Jeff Bezos. Do you know Amazon when they first started? It was an online bookstore, right?
I heard of it, I think from you, maybe.
Okay. So imagine Jeff Bezos is like, no, we're an online bookstore. That's what I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
focus on. And then somebody's like, hey, maybe you should do a online marketplace. Oh, hey, here's an opportunity. Hey, do you want to create this server? Do you want to start selling server space? He's like, no, no, no. Imagine he did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Amazon makes most of its money from AWS. Did you know that?
What's AWS?
AWS is their server. They sell servers. AWS is Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
So they sell server
Oh,
space,
I see, I see, I see, I see.
and that's actually the most profitable part of their business. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I,
but
I think something like I think the majority of I think AWS hosts more stuff on the internet than any other servers in the world. Like I think their servers are actually even bigger than like Google or any other hosting company.
wow,
So
wow.
so imagine Jeff Bezos like, no, I gotta. My focus is on online shopping. I don't have time to do with servers. Well, then AWS wouldn't exist. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the biggest businesses you see right now all started from a maybe.
Mm, awesome. Okay. Okay. I mean, good carousel. Well done.
The second one is this.
Mhm.
Um, so many people talk about like being first, like
Being first.
like being innovative, being first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You need to be first in something.
This is actually a lesson that I learned a while ago, but I don't know why I brought it up. I don't know what triggered this to come up.
So you mean like being the first one with some idea or with
Yeah,
some product?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like you want to be the first to come up with
Mm-hmm.
you want to do something original, right? And some people call it like blue ocean strategy, right? Like, have you heard of that blue ocean? Like, they say don't compete with an existing thing, just invent something new and
Just
create a new market, right?
yeah.
And that's what the Apple iPhone did, right? Right. Like, um, like iPhone was the first smartphone, right? Like, so that's why they have the biggest market share.
Mm-hmm.
Coca-Cola was the first soft drink, right? That's why they have the biggest market share. And
Yeah.
be the first. That it's called the first movers advantage, right? It's just be the first. Um, well, here's why that's a myth. I've actually been, like for me, I can use that as an example, but it also apply for me in my personal life. Is you actually never want to be you never want to be first. The best place to be is second. Did you know that?
I don't know about that, but I know that, if someone is like president and vice president. So I was always thinking it's much better to be vice president because nobody is like putting you on a spotlight, but you have like
Yeah, that's a good
salary
example. Yeah,
and like every
yeah.
beneficials of that.
You get you get most of the majority of the benefits without any of the risks,
Yeah.
right? So that's a good one. Yeah. So another thing is, Macintosh actually wasn't the first. Macintosh actually wasn't the first computer with a mouse. It
Okay.
was it was a it was a Xerox. The first, because Steve Jobs got that idea from Xerox. One day he went to Xerox Park and he saw how they did it, and Xerox actually, like a couple years before the Macintosh came out, Xerox actually came up with their own GUI computer first, but it was garbage. It was a failure. And then what Steve Jobs does, so Apple is never the first mover. They're not the Apple doesn't actually invent brand new products. What they do is they look at somebody who's already done it and
Mm-hmm.
how they did it, what are the areas they failed, and they make their version better. That's what Apple's good at. So like iPhone actually wasn't the first smartphone. Um, there's a um, there was a computer called General Magic. There was a company called General Magic, which actually tried to make something like the iPhone, like back in the 80s,
Okay.
failed miserably. A lot of the engineers that worked in that company, Steve Jobs recruited them, and those are the people that created the iPhone.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, like this happens in Alexander Graham Bell is not the one who invented the telephone. Thomas Edison didn't invent didn't invent electricity. Tesla did,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, so what happens a lot of times is usually the real inventors invent something for the first time and it fails horribly in the marketplace. And then the second person comes in and figures out what went wrong and they make the next version better. And this applies in everywhere, like the president, vice president thing. Um, um, Another example is like there's a huge difference between the first generation iPhone and the second generation iPhone. The second generation iPhone is so much better than the first generation iPhone.
Yeah.
Um, Almost every product's like almost every product is like that, right? Like the second version is such a huge improvement from the first. Like the people who buy the first version, it's almost like they're guinea pigs.
Mm-hmm. You got what you got, you know.
Do you know what I mean? It's like that. People who bought the first Teslas. Oh my gosh! You know how shitty the first the first Teslas were. So it's actually not, people. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like the myth is that, hey, you always want to be first, right? You want to be number
Mm.
one, but actually no, you don't want to be number one. You want to be number two. The best place to be is number two. I think it's the same thing in like battle, right? Like, you know, it,
You don't want to be in the first
when you're
row.
in war, if you're the first one, most likely you're gonna get killed, right?
Exactly. Okay. Mm.
Yeah, that one is something I've experienced myself, like, and because I think I've always been, I've never been number one, and I don't know how I thought of this, but there's like there's like a kind of like a bell curve like this. You see that?
Oh, the Gauss curve.
So here's the early adopters, like people who
Hmm.
first those are the ones, the guinea pigs, and then here's like the second movers, and then here's like the majority, and then here's the late bloomers, right? Like the late bloomers are the people that buy, like people who still people who still uh use flip phones right now. They're
Yeah.
like the late bloomer. The people who bought the first iPhone ever came out, that waited in line for 9 hours to buy the first iPhone, they're the early adopters. So I was never that,
Hmm.
and I was never
The last one.
the last one, but not even the second from the last one.
Hmm.
I bought the second. I bought the iPhone, the second generation iPhone. I always bought the second generation of everything. Do you know what I mean? I,
Yeah.
I I never took the risk of being the early adapter, but I've always like I was always the second around, right? I always waited to see what happens first before I do the next thing.
Hmm.
Do you understand what I mean? Like even this, like I never had the vision to buy. Like I never bought Bitcoin in the early days. I bought it like I didn't buy it in the first Bitcoin craze. I bought my Bitcoin in the second craze. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like that's what I mean. Like that, I always felt like I was always a little bit behind um, the first
Hmm.
curve, but like a little bit ahead of the second set of people.
When I heard that people say that you need to be first in something to have first idea or something, I instantly thought about one psychotherapist from Serbia, and she's the first person that brought this psychotherapy approach on Balkans. And so it was maybe in, I don't know, in 80s. It was, she's really old, maybe even, I don't know, something like that.
Like
Um,
1980s, or
yeah.
she was like in her 80s.
No, no, in 1980s.
Okay. Okay.
So so she was the first one, and but later on, every time I would watch her interview, she would brag about the fact that she is the first one, even though what she was saying and her approach and the quality of her program, I don't see that. I would not recommend that her way
Mhm.
of working to anyone else, but she's the first one, so she's kind of neglecting the parts where actually she needs to. The fact that she was the first one doesn't mean that is still the first one, and that she's, I don't know, just have weak spots, you know in her judgment. So this is what I had on my mind when I was watching this, listening. um And I guess the pressure is less when you are the second, because you know the it's a thing like, uh, it's kind of a curse of a talent child. You know, when they say like, you're so good at this, you're perfect, and then this child is so stressing out because they cannot, they need to maintain this because now this is the norm. But the child that didn't have a lot of expectation, they're like, la 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 la, they're going through life, and without that pressure. So the curse of the
Well,
gifted.
how does that relate?
When you say it's better to be the second one, because if you're the first one, you need to maintain to be the first always. You cannot be the first one time. You need to be first the next
Oh,
time,
I see what you mean. Okay.
because now that's the norm.
Yeah, I mean that's not what I meant, but
I know, I
that
know.
yeah,
I mean, you're
yeah.
you're going more in business way, and
Well, if you're number one and people see you as number one, that means it's you haven't failed. What I'm talking about is usually like, okay, usually the first person to do something or the first try of something, you never hear that. That's a story that you don't. It's not even written in the history books. What's written in the history book is actually usually the second person who did it. And you know how like history is written by, they say history is written by winners.
mm-hmm.
So, Thomas Edison is not going to give any credit to Tesla, even though Tesla was like the first one to really, uh, like he was the
Invent.
one who was promoting DC, yeah, instead of AC. Like, and even though like, you know, I think before Alexander Graham Bell, there was another Italian inventor who actually invented it, and Alexander Graham Bell kind of stole the idea. But Alexander Graham Bell is not gonna, now that Alexander Graham Bell became the Bell Company, which became AT&T. Now they're a huge giant. They're not gonna go back and be like, oh yeah, somebody else invented that. Like,
Mm.
like winners write the history books. So usually the ones that we think are the first ones that wrote the that that they're the number one, usually are actually number two, and they killed off the number one.
So you're advising people actually that they need to steal the idea and to win someone's idea.
Yeah, I mean because there are millions of number ones who fail. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And out of those millions of number ones who fails, one of them might succeed. Like most people fail. Most people that try new stuff fails. But then one might succeed, right?
Mhm.
But then not really. It's kind of like that Xerox thing. They don't really succeed because they don't know how to bring it out into the marketplace, or they don't know how to do it right. So let me give you an example. The reason why Xerox failed in being the first GUI computer is this. Xerox's mouse worked in you know how like if you look at a ball track mouse, so
Mhm.
one of Apple's genius design is the ball track mouse, where you can scroll diagonally.
Mhm.
Xerox mouse wasn't like that. Xerox mouse is you can only go left or right or top or bottom, like left or
Oh.
right or top or bottom. So imagine here's a screen and I want to scroll from here to here. I have to go scroll boop and then do, do. Like that's how I had to do it. Also, you cannot have windows more than one window open at a time. So if I'm
Mhm.
using Microsoft Word and I have this open, and now I want to use internet, like if I want to use Chrome, I have to close out of Microsoft Word and open Chrome, and so I can have multiple windows open, right? And plus, there was a lot of other things too. But Steve Jobs recognized those flaws.
I
He
see.
knew that nobody's gonna use a GUI computer if the only thing you can do is like you have to scroll all the way across and scroll up and then scroll like you know what I mean? And so he understood those little things that Xerox failed on that he knew was gonna make the difference.
Mm,
Do you understand what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, I didn't know that about mouse is really funny story, or one window to be open.
Yeah, I mean that's how Xerox did it, and then that's like Steve Jobs fixed it in the Macintosh.
Yeah. I mean, like when I was listening to you, this was the most accented in my brain when I was listening. So
Yeah, but you see how here's the thing, right? This is why I always give examples, because if I said, the first version usually fails because they didn't do it quite right, and then the
mhm.
second version does it right? Yeah, like when I said that, you're like, oh, okay. But then when I actually gave the example, you're like, oh, yeah, that that makes a ton of sense, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why examples are so important.
Yeah, without example, it kind of sound, I don't know.
It
Uh,
sounds cliche.
hmm, yeah. I mean, if you have more money, you can uh, took someone's idea and actually put more resources and make
Make
it
it
better.
better. Yeah. It's like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But then this is what it translates to. Like I give you an example of what it translates to, right?
This is more like if you are trying to like mentalize how other people are going to use it, then you can make something more ergonomic or something like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Okay. So your myth would be you need, what would your myth, how would you say what's your myth?
Mm. Yeah, I mean this one I don't the second one I don't feel as strongly about it, just because it's not like a lesson that I personally learned. It's just something I observed.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to do it, and I guess the reason why I also wouldn't do it is because 99.9% of people in the world are not trying to be number one. So like who's this content for really, right? Like because you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? But I guess the what I would say is like, you know what? Now that we're talking through, like the better lesson would be, you know, like everybody wants to be first in something, right? Oh, we're the first therapy online therapist who does it like this. Nobody else
Mm-hmm.
does it like that. We're the only one who does it, right? Or like, oh, we're the first. Like I do the same thing. We're the first online course where we meet on Zoom and we have weekly calls, blah blah blah. Like nobody, like we everybody wants to be the first. Everybody wants to be the only one
Mm-hmm.
that nobody else is doing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like that's not always good, because there's a reason why everyone does it that way. It's not because those companies are stupid. You know what I mean?
No.
But even that doesn't sound like. I mean, if I were to ask me like 3 years ago, that's probably the carousel that I make. But I don't even know if I truly believe that anymore. So
I mean, does that contradict with your desire to make the best websites? Or
no, because the best is different than being number one. Like being, when I say number one, I'm not
I
talking
know you
about
mean like
best.
being the
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
but just the thing that it's kind of I don't. It's easy to mix these two when
Yeah.
we hear it. To be the best and be the first.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that the second one is not really that great of an idea. Actually, this one I would just keep, like, like if I really want to make a carousel that people are gonna get, I would probably keep it simple. Like, um, people say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, be the first, right? Or first movers advantage. That's what they call it. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the reason why the reason why Amazon's so big is because they were the first, or the reason why Google. See, but that's the thing, right? Google wasn't the first search engine. Yahoo, Excite, AltaVista, Lycos, Ask Jeeves, all of those, like they were the first. MSN, like so. So I actually think Yahoo was the first search engine. So and like we all know what happened to Yahoo, right? So Google was actually not the first.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good example. So maybe people say, be, every, here's what I would say: be first, right? Hook,
Mm-hmm.
first mover's advantage.
Okay.
Um, every entrepreneur wants to be the first, right? Oh, and then maybe I'll put like a little quote that says like, uh, we're the first blank to do this. We're the first company to do blank. You know what I mean? Right?
Okay.
Well, here are all the other companies that were first to do something. Like, and then I'll put example like Xerox Park versus, you know, Apple Macintosh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Alta Vista versus Google, right? Like Nicholas
Mm-hmm.
Tesla versus Thomas Edison, like, or whoever the inventor of the Alexander phone versus Alexander Graham Bell, right? So I'll put examples of like the one that first did it versus the person that actually perfected it, right?
Okay.
So that people, and then I'll maybe like even put a little caption there: first, second, first, Yahoo, second Google, first Xerox, second Apple Macintosh. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll do that, and then at the end I'll say, you know, maybe the line should be something like, um, being first isn't always the best, and then I'll add, um, the first always it has to take all the risks,
Mm-hmm.
but usually the second gets all of the benefits. Something like that.
Okay.
Well, or like what we said before, like number two gets all the benefits of the first without any of the risk,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe the final is like, you know, don't try to be number one, try to be number two, because by the time you're number three, that sucks too, right? Because you're just like
Repeating.
Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just like the second. You're just not good enough for that, but you're just like, you know what I mean?
Okay. So
You're like, yeah.
so well, Is this a good enough carousel for your standards?
Yeah, I think that. What do you think?
I
When
think
you would that make you go? It's like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
um yeah, I didn't have like the strong impression because we were talking through it. But if I was reading, I guess it would be different.
What did you think when I first said it? Like all during the beginning when I first said you don't want to be first, you want to be second, and I gave you the example of which
I
example I gave you?
instantly, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. But my mind went instantly on president and vice president. And that actually I was thinking how cool it is to be vice president. So
And so what did you think about the idea of number two versus number one versus number two?
it makes sense. And when you show me example with the mouse, well, this made sense a lot because somebody learned on someone's mistake, you know. So it made sense.
What about so which part was more like wow when you first heard it and then you thought about the president vice president thing, or just now when I repeated the whole carousel how I would do it?
Um, well, the most impacted moment was when you show me example with the mouse. So the line and like this and two windows. So this was like the most impactful moment
Why do you think that is?
because it's so obvious. It's, I don't know, I could imagine it. So I imagined I don't know, using that mouse and having only one window open. It would be like really frustrating to
Yeah,
turn it off and
it's
turn it
such a
on.
small it's such a small improvement
Yeah.
but such a huge impact on the usability.
Yeah. So that it's kind of, I could relate to the experience. Probably that's why it was more impactful. It was the most impactful, more than thinking about this company or that company. It's kind of a little bit detached. But this was like, oh my god! So they used actually they upgraded
so
something.
so it has nothing to do with the number one number two concept. It's like outside of that,
I
that
mean,
in itself.
the example in itself moved me more than the other examples because I could relate to them more than I could relate to Edison or Tesla.
What about Yahoo and Google?
It's same thing. um,
Also, like Tesla is not the first electric car company, right? Did you know that?
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How do you know this
There was
thing?
another. There's another electric car company that made an electric car, just like Tesla. It could go for like pretty long distance. I think you can drive on it for 100 miles. Uh, but nobody's even this car. They only made 50 of it, and nobody's ever even heard of it.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay.
so okay, let's say I told you the story about the Macintosh, right? With
Hmm.
how you can you scroll like blah blah blah. What is the lesson that you took out of that story? That example.
Um, the lesson is that someone put themselves in user shoes and change the, upgraded something. So somebody learned from someone's previous mistake.
So why? Okay, like we learn from previous mistakes all the time. So why is that example so special? What makes that example stand out to you? What is it about that example stands out to you?
It's funny. It's funny to imagine. I never imagined that there is a computer with only one window and that you can move mouse only like in four
Yeah,
directions. You know. So the
got
whole
it.
concept is moving because it's not. Maybe we are too adapted to some other reality. So I guess it's something like that. Probably I felt that pain of having only one window open.
Well, I mean, most first inventions are like that. Like, I think the first version of Tesla was terrible. I think you can only drive like, like I think the first version of Tesla you can only drive for like an hour before after you recharge or something like
Wow.
that. And then I think you had to like whenever you recharge, you had to charge like you had to charge for an entire like for a full day before you can use it again. So it was completely unusable. Like most first version of the products are completely unusable.
Mm-hmm.
The first telephone was unusable because nobody else had a telephone. Like even if you had a telephone, if nobody else has a telephone, it's not usable, right? But that's why Alexander Graham Bell set up the network so that people can actually talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
Like
This is
the
also another great example. Imagine you have a phone and you don't have anyone to call because nobody
yeah,
can have a phone.
yeah. No, but that is so true. It's like that's why the second person is usually the best, is because phone is useless without you
Mm,
know without the phone lines, right? A television is useless without TV shows.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's why the first version of the products usually fail. It's because it's just a proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. There's a huge gap between inventing a new thing to actually making it like
Mm-hmm.
usable in the marketplace.
Yeah, from inventing to be usable. It's so
The
long.
first iPhone was a garbage. You know that when the first iPhone came out, there was no such thing as an app store. Like what makes smartphones so amazing is the concept of app stores, right?
Yeah.
That you can install different apps on it.
Yeah.
Well, the first version of iPhone didn't have that. It was just a phone. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't really special. It was just people bought it because it looks cool and it was Apple. But usability wise, it was garbage. It's on the second generation when they launched the App Store,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I bought it.
What year
Because
was that?
now maybe 2008, I think.
Okay. Um. So when you heard that, to me the most impactful example was the one with the mouse. Uh, and when I told you why it was, what did you get out of it? This.
I guess what I got out of it is okay. Here's what I think. I think the reason why that was the most I think that the reason why you, I think the reason why you thought that was like the coolest part was because right before that I said, um, Xerox had the idea, but they didn't do it perfectly, right? And then Apple made an improvement on that product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were probably thinking in that mind was like, yeah, but okay, yeah, improvement, just like iPhone 10, iPhone 11, like yes, improvement, but like what? Why is that? How can that possibly make? How can that little thing like that make such a big difference, right? But then when I gave you the example, I think that's when you realize how huge of a difference that would be from a user's point of view. Even from the technical point of view, it was a small, simple thing,
Yeah.
right? From the users, it doesn't seem like a big thing, but actually, when you're from a user's perspective, it's a huge difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's why. But don't you feel the same way when I said the first generation didn't have an app store? The second generation iPhone had an app store.
I
You
mean,
can see the night and day difference between those two, also, right?
yeah. Yeah. Not that vivid impression, but for example, when you said, imagine you have a phone and you don't have anyone that you know to call.
Hmm.
So this is also,
That's even bigger, yeah.
yeah.
Do you know, like, do you know why Google is so? Uh, do you know why Google is so much more accurate than Yahoo, or was back then?
Mm, no.
Because it was a huge. When Google came out, it was such a big deal. Like, because when Google first came out, they were a tiny little company. They weren't. They didn't make it. They were just college kids who. They were just PhD students who made this thing,
Okay.
and just through word of mouth, it spread. So another developer that I know sent it to me and said, "Hey," and then I tried it. I was like, "Holy shit, this shit is so accurate! Like whatever I search for, the results are so accurate." Because before, I thought Yahoo was useless. Every other search engine before Google was pretty much useless. Because like no matter what I'm looking for on Yahoo, it never gave me the right answer. Do you understand what I mean?
Why?
And the reason why is because and what makes Google special is Google's what's called page rank algorithm. And that's what makes Google different from any other search engines. And it's their biggest like proprietary algorithm. And what the page rank algorithm is on Yahoo, they use different algorithm. Like for example, if I went on Yahoo
Mm-hmm.
and said, you know, how do I like the question the question from before, right? Like how do I what was the question I asked before? Like how do I add caption on Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I search for that, then and then let's say I made a website and all I did was I typed in how do I make a I typed in how do I make a
Oh,
caption on Instagram and I just copy and paste it 1,000 times. Like that page will show up number one because this page says that same phrase 1,000 times. Let's rank it, right? What Larry Page and what's his name? What's the other guy's name?
I don't know.
Whatever. Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the founders of Google, their whole PhD theory was how how we can the way to trust a source is by saying by getting the reputation from other sources.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care how many times you say you are. Your article means how do I how do I add caption in Instagram?
I
I don't care
see.
about you. I
I
care what other people say, right? And I care. And then if this person, a lot of people say these people are correct, and then this person says you're correct, then that person's value is a lot higher than this random person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way they figure that out is um, tracking link, right? Let's say you have an article on your website that says uh, how to add caption in Instagram, and you wrote a blog post, right?
Okay.
And then let's say uh, New York Times had a link on one of their pages that says, "Oh, if you want to know how to write blog posts," and then if you click on that, how to add caption on Instagram, and you click on that, it takes you to your website. Google tracks
Mm-hmm.
that link, right, back to your site.
I see.
So Google's going like, "Oh, this website links back to this website,"
I
right?
see.
But let's say you had 10,000 other websites linking back to that page just like that, right? Versus there's another website who has the same article like you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to rank for that word. But nobody links to that site because that information is garbage.
I see.
Then yours is going to rank over theirs, right? And that's called page rank. And every page on the internet has a page rank value. So it's from 0 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the backbone of their algorithm is they
Wow.
use how many pages linked to your website to measure the accuracy. And they're all like, obviously, why would the link from New York Times to you be worth more than, you know, John's blog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's a nobody. So how does Google know that? Because New York Times already has a page rank of 9 because so many other sites link back to
I
it.
see. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anytime New York Times links back to you, you're getting all of that link juice of all the other websites too.
I see.
So that's how they do it.
Nice story. I mean, look how look how you made it simple, and I mean, I would never ever had an idea that I would know how the algorithm works, but you made it really simple. Probably there are more things to that, but this is
Yeah. This is like the most simplest, but I think that's kind of like, yeah, that's my passion. I is to take complex things and simplify it in a way that literally anybody can understand it.
Mm, yeah. One thing I wanted to ask. Uh, you've been to film school,
Hmm.
so I was wondering is there some kind of technique or something how to put like visually someone's timeline, like when you make a story film something, you have, I don't know, like timeline of your hero. So when I googled it, they show me the circle and the hero journey, and I didn't like it. So I want something to be like horizontal and like to track person from the beginning till the end of the story or a movie or someone's life. Um, is there some way to do it? Because what I did was I just turned, the blank paper, and then I started the, I don't know, birth, and then like do like arrow, what mom and dad thought about that moment, and then the other, I don't know, like, so my idea is to write like 5-second moments in that timeline. So is there something that you can share about that?
I don't really understand the question. Like, what do you mean by timeline?
Like, you know, when what we did in the first week assignment when we wrote stories, like 5-second moments from different periods in life.
Hmm.
So to kind of make one timeline, like visual timeline, and I don't know if there is something that maybe you learn to do, because I imagined it's kind of similar thing when you want to create a movie film. You have that kind of, I don't know, timeline, what happens, like key moments in movie. I don't know.
No, it's totally different. Because movie is not a timeline. Like movie can jump back and forth too. Like in you know,
But you need to have a timeline. You
it
can.
doesn't work in a chronological order. I guess if you're a writer, maybe you. For some people, they might do it, but movies like you know, if this is your whole life, like it's just this part, right? Or it might be like this part, and then you skip to this part, and then you skip to this part. But
Okay.
it's not going to show the in betweens, right?
Yeah, but my question was those parts that were used to put in
Hmm.
one timeline. You know, you're of course
But what
you're
do you
not.
mean by a timeline?
I don't know. The girl goes to high school and she's I think it's straight A movie.
Hmm.
So she's smart, but blah blah blah. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing is she, maybe it's a little short period of time for that movie, but for the sake of example, after that she has problems because they accuse her of some things.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Then she's changing, so this timeline. Then next thing is she's meeting a boy that she.
So you mean like a scene, like
Yeah,
what's each scene?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean the process of how they do it is that first the screenwriter will write the entire script, right?
Okay.
And then so like scene one, you know, and then scene two, scene three, like, and then
The
the
script
director will,
is also with dialogues, not just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
girl does
everything,
this and then go there. Oh, okay. Okay, with dialogues. Okay.
dialogue plus the description of what's going on,
Okay.
like everything, like it'll tell you is it night, daytime, is it indoor, outdoor, what's around the settings, who's in, like it gives you everything, right? The screenplay as long as the dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
And then the director has to now take that and break it into, okay, here's scene one, and they have to break it into shots. Okay, first shot, wide shot of the entire house, and then cut to close up of the main character
Mm-hmm.
saying that, you know what I mean? So they have to do that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about from scene to scene to scene?
I mean, maybe not in those details like the one scene,
Hmm.
but let's say from one scene to describe that 5-second moment, and then another scene 5-second moment.
I see. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think I do know that like every scene needs like a purpose of why that scene, what is that scene trying to
Mm-hmm.
represent, right? So for example, like,
Okay.
have you ever seen Inglorious Bastard?
Mm-hmm.
So Inglorious Bastard is so watch Google like Inglorious Bastards first opening scene. Like to me, this scene is one of the most brilliant opening scene of any movie. Like one of the best opening scene of any movie that I've ever seen. And what it does is it gives you like a preview. Spoiler alert. So the movie is about a group of American soldiers that were sent to Germany during World War II, and their job was to go kill as many Nazis as they can, right? But one of the things that they plan is to burn down a movie theater that during an opening premiere, when all of the high-ranking Nazi officers are going to be there, they were going to bomb them and kill them all, right? That's like one of the plans. And the movie theater is owned by a girl named Shoshana. Now, the first opening scene of that movie shows it's a backstory. It shows a few years before that, when it's the beginning story of Shoshana, and the main bad guy Nazi officer, right? But then when you watch the scene, what it does is it tells you, even though it's just like a first opening scene, like maybe 5-6 minutes, or I don't know how long it is actually, but it tells you so many details about that character, about Shoshana, about the state of about about like how evil that guy is, and there's so much suspense to it, and like what it pretty much draws a picture of everything, the backstory in that one scene, and that's the purpose of that scene, right?
Okay.
So every scene has a purpose, like, and the purpose might be to move along the plot. It could be for character development, to show you what kind of person this person is, right? So if every scene has to serve a purpose like that.
Is there a list of purposes?
I don't know. I mean, I think that that's it pretty much. It's kind of like what I mean. The purpose is different for every movie, right?
Okay.
But it's usually it's to show, like, a lot of times it's character development, like why that first opening scene. So at the end of the movie, Shoshana ends up locking up all the Nazis, but the Shoshana owns that theater, and then she's the one who ends up burning all of them. But you can see from that first scene, like, how much she hates the Nazis, because he kills all of her family, and she's the only one who survives from that first scene, right? And so you know what I mean? It's like, so whatever, like, there's no movie there's no story without some sort of a motive of the character, right?
So character development means 5-second moments when there is some switch in something.
No, character development is like what drives the whole movie. This guy just wants to hunt down every Jews in Germany. Shoshana, or in France, Shoshana is terrified of Nazis, and she hates the Nazis, and in every chance she hates them, right? And she's gonna do everything in her power. The protagonist is gonna do everything in their power to achieve this goal, whatever goal that is. The antagonist, and the antagonist can be a person, but it can also be something else, right? Like in Independence Day, the antagonists are the aliens, right? In some movies, the antagonist might be the weather. Like, you know what I mean? The antagonist is doing everything that can in order to stop the protagonist from getting there, and that clash happens is where the story is. That's the conflict of the story, like this, and it's you know, and it's that's what makes a story interesting. If everything happens exactly the way she wanted, it's not interesting, right? And it's also not interesting if you can't, like, let's say it's a story about a girl who, you know, who wants to, kill, you know, like who hates the Nazis and who wants to kill the Nazis, but you have no idea why. That's not interesting either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to know why you're so driven, right? Like, and that's why, when you look at most movies, uh most of these like Hollywood movies and most of like this really famous stories, a lot of them start with the child losing a parent or losing the adult figure in their life. Like, Batman loses both his parents when he's young, right? Spider-Man loses his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Like Finding Nemo, like he gets lost from his parents, and the reason why is because, like, as a child, that the parent is who we depend on. Like if we lose a parent, if we lose an adult figure, that means like all of our safety is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Mm-hmm.
person that we're supposed to depend on is gone, and that's such a traumatic experience that when you start when you start a story like that, it automatically gets the audience hooked. It automatically
Yeah.
makes the audience feel for that character, right? Like with that fear, like the child losing the parent, and then now whatever happens, like that's the motive for whatever they do next.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to understand the background of that character. Like, why is this person so driven to do this? Why is, you know,
I see.
why is without that, I just feel like it's not going to be that great of a story.
I see. Like in Breaking Bad, when this guy, what's
Breaking Bad is kind of like we know that I haven't watched the show, but from what I understand, we know that this chemistry teacher lived life perfectly,
mm,
following all the rules, doing exactly what he was supposed to do, eating
yeah.
healthy, and then what happens? He gets cancer, right? And then so then he's like, "Fuck this!" Like, well, I
Mm,
follow all the rules, and this happened, and then he goes exact the opposite way, right?
yeah.
So you can kind of understand the motive behind it, like. But then if that without that backstory, if somebody just did that out of nowhere, then it'll just be
That
weird.
makes sense.
It
Yeah.
like
Okay. So, what example will you choose for your carousel?
which one? Which carousel?
The last one. Would you choose? Will you choose like the specific example with the mouse or Tesla?
Didn't I give you?
Mm?
Didn't I give you the example?
Mm,
Yeah,
Yahoo.
I think
Oh, you
I
list
did give you the whole carousel.
you listed
Yeah,
like you said.
yeah, but I'm gonna have like in each slide,
Mm-hmm.
on the top half. I'm gonna show you like the Yahoo versus Google, and I'm gonna put
Okay.
you know
The
first
first.
search engine, second search engine. Okay, the next one, right? I'm gonna maybe I might put the first electric car ever made that nobody's ever heard of, and
Mm-hmm.
then Tesla, and then I'll say first electric car, second electric car, right? Next, I might put something like Xerox and then Macintosh, right? The first graphical user interface computer, second user interface, right? And then at the end, I might say something like, you know, like the first, like being first, take like the first one takes all the risk. The second one usually gets all the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't be first, be second.
Okay.
See,
Awesome.
this one is not. This is one of those carousels that are cool, but it's like that's all it is. It's just cool. I don't think it. I don't think it actually helps anyone.
Yeah.
But maybe I should just let that go. Maybe it doesn't.
I mean,
And
this is all.
see, like that.
If the point of a carousel is, I never thought about this that way. Um, I mean, you got the point.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know what somebody will do with that.
Yeah.
So, but I guess the point of the carousel is there.
Yeah, I guess in order to make people say I never thought of it that way, you don't really need, because this carousel breaks all the rules. Like it breaks the rule of
Who are you
how did
talking
I learn the
to?
lesson myself? Who are you talking to? All
Mm.
of those things I say. Um, but it still makes people go, "Oh, I never thought of it that way," right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess maybe that's fine.
Well, you're proving the point that you learned the first lesson from the carousel with maybe.
Oh yeah, that one is yes. But I think the second one is actually a better carousel.
It looks to me
So maybe it's not a to you what?
it looks like it's done, like it's finished. Like maybe you will definitely polish it, but it looks
Mm-hmm.
like you have everything there. It's good
No,
enough.
I think once I start writing it, it's once I start like designing it,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna change. But I'm just trying to think like for anyone to just come up with uh this one is the number one versus number two. I'm trying to see where I learned that. Yeah, I don't know. My brain is not working anymore.
Okay. Um.
This is a lot harder than we thought, huh?
Yes. Yes, but it is what it is. So
What's your takeaway for today?
my takeaway. Well, it's nice to kind of not have strict concept in terms of podcast recording. Um, and I wrote down these 3 ways to come to the example, and that it needs to be easier. But to be honest, I don't have like takeaway for my skill, but listening to how you're doing it, it was so I could see the structure of it and I could follow it. So it kind of just I don't know, just exercising this muscle. So nothing spectacular happened, but kind of I could follow, because before, like a year ago, I couldn't follow. I would read your carousel and I was like, what's the beginning, what's the ending, what I couldn't define that. So now it's much easier. So this is an exercise.
Yeah.
for me.
It's just, I think it just requires practice.
So this is good.
Like for yours, I think maybe it can be something like, you know, sometimes we, this is not a carousel yet, but the myth is something like, I mean, from my perspective, it's a lot of our anxieties. Okay, I don't know if this is correct or not, but
Okay.
I feel like a lot of our anxieties come from people pleasing. Like, if we literally didn't care about what other people thought of us, I just think a lot of our anxieties would be gone. Like when somebody's honking at you, that anxiety comes because you care about what that person thinks of you. Like
Yeah.
when you're at the doctor's office, it's because you think, what are all these other people waiting to think of me? What does this person think of me? What does this person think of me? I don't want this person to hate me. I don't want I don't want my followers to unfollow me because I haven't posted. Like, it's literally everything. Most of our anxieties come from worrying about what people think of us, or something like that. I mean, that's the myth truth for me. I know that that's not what you were saying, but if I were to turn that into a myth truth sandwich, I'm like, what's the myth here? Is that a lot of things that we think are anxieties are, or when we're nervous or something like that, it actually comes from ego.
I think I can't think anymore.
Okay, let's continue next week.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have a breakthrough. All right. Anything else you want to add before we?
After we finish, I want to ask you something.
Okay, but not here.
No.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.